So once you've put together your attribute list, we're now going to embark on the actual putting in place the methodology that I'm going to recommend that's going to get you employed within 100 days. I've been using this methodology for literally more than a decade, and it has proven to engage people in meaningful employment within a very modest period of time. And the methodology that I use is called 100 Approaches in 100 Days. Now, what often happens is people lose their jobs and they start applying for roles, and they go immediately to Seek or to LinkedIn and they start applying for roles that they see advertised. That approach is fundamentally flawed. Firstly, it's a highly competitive process. There are hundreds of candidates applying for that role at the same time. You are just one of many, and to get out of the pile of resumes that they're going to be receiving is extremely hard. In fact, your chances of being contacted are about 5 to 10%. So it's an incredibly low strike rate. And so if that is your approach, just applying for roles that you see on LinkedIn or you see on Seek, that approach is not going to deliver results. And so that's why it's really important we understand the methodology that I'm going to show you today, because this is the key to getting re-employed in the market. So we talk often about what we call this unadvertised job market. What is it? So a role, often companies are looking for employees all the time, and they could be advertising that role on their own company website. They could be asking their employees to look for that talent, for that position. They could be asking people in their network, their suppliers, their customers for recommendations as to who would be a good employee. Or they could have engaged a recruitment or an executive search firm to find that talent. This is what we call the unadvertised job market. So it's below the surface. It's not necessarily showing up on Seek or LinkedIn, but it is showing up, but it's through these other networks. And when we're making approaches, we have to take into account that we're going to be making approaches to headhunters who might have the search for the opportunity, or we might be talking to someone who's connected to the company in some way, whether that be an employee or someone who does business with the company who can make a recommendation, or we're going just direct to the company ourselves and actually going through their official channels and dealing direct and taking the middleman out of the equation. So this concept of 100 in 100 is really at the heart of my methodology. And what I want you to do is to start to track every single approach. I want you to be very methodical about your job search approach here. So usually what I get people to do is start a tracking sheet, like an Excel spreadsheet, where you can track who did you contact, what CV were they sent. Be very, very specific. What date did they send the documentation over? What did they say? Did they acknowledge the resume and the application? This is going to be really important because you want to build some momentum over 100 days. You want to be getting into interview. Now, from start to finish, this process typically takes 6 to 8 weeks to get ink on paper. That is because most companies will take you through a recruitment process where there'll be several interviews. There may be psychometric testing, there may be reference checks. That process from beginning to end, the quickest I've ever seen it happen is 6 weeks. More likely than not, it's 8 to 12 weeks. So from beginning to end, you've really got to be monitoring your timing, how many approaches you're making. Are you sending enough CVs out into the market? Are you making enough direct approaches? So out of your 100 approaches, I would estimate a third of this is going to be by approaching a company directly. A company maybe you've researched, you've decided you'd love to go and work for Microsoft, for example. You've done some research as to what they're recruiting for. You've gone to their website. You've seen that they're advertising a role on their website in their career portal, and you've made a direct approach to Microsoft. Or you've contacted an ex-colleague who used to work at Microsoft and they've recommended you to the managing director or something along those lines. So a third of the approaches are going to be direct approach to the market, direct to the potential employer. The next third is going to be through headhunters and recruitment firms, executive search firms, recruitment firms. You cannot ignore these firms in the recruitment process. Now, often in challenging economic circumstances, companies are letting staff go. They're making staff redundant, and the last thing they can be seen to be doing is recruiting at the same time. And that's why often they will give confidential recruitment briefs to executive search firms to look for that talent confidentially. Now, it's absolutely critical to your success that you learn how to work effectively with executive search firms. They are effectively the outsourced human resources component of the company. So the company trusts this firm to recruit top talent for them. They often pay them very high fees to look for top talent. And so a decent amount of our approaches to the market will be dealing with executive search firms who may have been retained by the Microsofts or the Telstras of the world to find top talent for that company. And then the next third, at least 30 approaches, are going to be through our networks, through our channels, the people that we know, the circle of influence. And so really over the course of 3 months, we're going to be monitoring that every day we're making a number of approaches. We're either going direct to companies, to key decision makers, we're going to put in applications, we might be looking at things that are advertised, but we're really concentrating on that unadvertised piece because that's going to be where I believe you're going to get dividends. Now, this is it's a numbers game, and I hate to say that, but that is the truth of the recruitment process. You have to make sure you're getting in for enough interviews. And this is where many of my clients fall down, in that they're not getting enough face-to-face interviews. They'll often come to me and say, I'm not having success, I am not getting interviews, and then we can start to break it down. Where is it going wrong in the process? And I want to just describe what are the different tools that we're going to be using throughout the process. So you're going to need a resume and a cover letter. Now, the purpose of these documents is to get you in the door for an interview. Okay, so it's really important to understand they're marketing documents. They're designed to be sent to promote, to inform the party receiving the document about your skills, your experience, your capabilities, and what you would be suitable for. And this document is designed to get them interested enough to pick up the phone, either to have a conversation with you or to actually bring you in for a proper interview. Once you're into interview, your job is then to try and stay in interview and get to the second interview and the third and the fourth interview. And so we're going to spend a bit of time today talking about interview technique because that is absolutely critical. So there's two main tools that we're going to be using today to further your chances to get employed. The first is the personal branding to get you in the door for the conversation. And the second is, once you get in the door for the conversation, to stay in conversation and go through the recruitment process. So this methodology is tried and tested. I cannot stress this enough. I have literally taken thousands and thousands of candidates through this process. If you go through this 100 in 100-day approach, you will end up on approximately 10 long lists. And then from there, you'll come down onto 3 to 4 short lists. From shortlist, you can expect then, hopefully, to end up with 1 or 2 job offers. So it's a massive formula that we're dealing with, 100 approaches to maybe end up with 1 or 2 job offers. Now, in a difficult employment market, when there is high unemployment, when the chips are down, when the economy isn't doing very well, it might mean that the approach has to be 200 in 100 days. And that's where we're at the moment in the market, because the market is poor. We've got higher levels of unemployment. We've got a lot of redundancies, a lot of people losing their jobs. And so we've got to step it up. But the methodology fundamentally doesn't change. It's just increasing the amount of effort. Now, if you were to go the other way and send out 100 applications on Seek, and I told you that you're probably only going to get a 10% strike rate, then the chances of you getting an offer by approaching it that way are very, very slim. Okay, so this is the proven methodology that I'm talking about, and this is what will get you results. So be very specific about what we're trying to achieve here, and let's trust in the process. Recruitment is a process. We have to get you in for enough interviews with enough key decision makers so that in fact you can be offered employment, and that is the key.